Welcome, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. My name is Brad Trimble. I'm the Director of Learning and Development for the RP Group. And I'm joined today by Mr. Mark Cohen, who works for the CCC Technology Center. He and his team have been working diligently on the new data warehouse for the system, and he's going to be going through some report options for researchers. So it should be very informative for everyone. Just a quick housekeeping item, questions and answers. Should you have any during the presentation, please feel free to enter those in the chat, and I'll do my best to help moderate that and ensure that we get to everybody's questions. Mr. Cohen seems to find that a lot of the questions get answered during the presentation, so he might punt until the end on some cases, so just want to let you know. And with that, we'll go ahead and turn it over to Mark. Welcome. Thanks for being here.
Yeah, thank you, and thanks for inviting me. So I am the product manager at the California Community Colleges Technology Center with responsibility for data and infrastructure projects, and that includes CCC Data, which is part of the Data Services Program Initiative from the Chancellor's Office. Let me catch up here. So CCC Data is designed to provide the infrastructure to the California Community College system to aggregate data from disparate systems to an enterprise data warehouse. The CCC data provides access to these data to the institutional researchers at colleges, district offices, and the Chancellor's Office, where the data may be used to support institutional decision-making aligned with the Chancellor's vision for success. CCC Data Platform has been developed in coordination with and at the direction of the Chancellor's Office and overseen by the Chancellor's Office Data Governance Council with input from a data warehouse advisory group, which is made up of institutional researchers. During this presentation, I wanted to walk you through a brief history of the project and then get into the current architecture of what makes up CCC Data and the data sources that are supported, and then speak a little bit about what's coming up in terms of enhancements to the platform, including data sources that we expect to add over the course of this year and over time, and then follow up with time for questions and discussion for questions that don't get asked during the presentation itself. So as far as a brief history of the project, the CCC Data Project originated at the request of the Tech Center grant to construct a data lake in support of the online education and common assessment initiatives. And that's where it originally began. And we responded by developing a proof of concept that was constructed leveraging Amazon's S3 data store. The following year, after that successful proof of concept, the grant called for the Tech Center to build a data warehouse, which we did. And in 2018, hang on, I'm having some mouse click issues. Okay, so in 2018, the Tech Center developed the architecture for a system-wide data information and technology infrastructure where we brought in data from CCC Apply, Canvas, and MyPath. And at the time, were instructed to de-escalate the assessed data. We also created the LGBTQ report in response to legislative need. As far as last year, we began with the completion of a successful pilot of the data warehouse, which we conducted with about 7 colleges. And we launched the CCC data infrastructure to production, as well as brought additional data sources into the data lake, which I'll be going over. At the end of last year, we also formed the new data warehouse advisory group to start bringing in the perspective of the research community at the colleges and districts. I look forward to more of that dialogue. This year, we launched the data warehouse report server to production. We actually launched that just recently on August 27th. The report server was upgraded to include the data sources, which I'll be talking about during this presentation. And we're currently expanding access to the data warehouse over the coming month, as well as adding additional data sources to the data warehouse as we continue to work with the Chancellor's Office and the advisory group to identify the data sources that we'll be adding through the balance of this year. As far as an overview of the platform, it's really made up of, when I talk about CCC data, it's made up of 4 key components. The first is a series of data pipelines which connect to a variety of source databases within the CCC data platform. These data pipelines serve to extract, transform, and load data. The next key piece is the data lake, which is where data is persisted as it comes from the source, storing changes over time, which would enable data mining and auditing purposes through these data. A data warehouse, which acts as a structured source of master data that can be used to generate the data marts, reports, and analytics that the end users need. And a report server, as well as direct connections to the data warehouse, which provides colleges, districts, and the chancellor's office with the access to these data for reporting analytics. And over time, we expect the platform to grow to include additional elements, which I'll be discussing later in the presentation. As far as the data supported in the data warehouse, today it consists of all the data from CCC Apply, including the application, non-credit application, international application, and promise grant, as well as the LGBTQ data that's been available in the report server, the data from the multiple measures placement program, MyPath usage data, data from the college's Canvas system when requested by the college, and data from the chancellor's office, curriculum inventory or COCI, as well as the CID system. The data warehouse also includes data from the MIS system, which we expect to be made available, a prioritized subset of the data once data governance has been put in place through the chancellor's office. At that time, we'd be able to add it to the data warehouse from the data lake. We've also been asked by the chancellor's office to include data from CalPass Plus, Launchboard, and Nova to the data lake. And over time, we expect that some of this data will be added to the data warehouse as data governance allows for that data to be shared through this platform. As far as the data platform, taking a little bit of a deeper dive into what it looks like without getting too technical, the architecture consists of, starts with the data sources that we connect to the data platform. And this consists of data that over time will be made up of both system-wide data as well as college-specific data. And then for each data set is connected through a series of ETLs or data pipelines. These data pipelines run nightly or more often based on requirements and act to discover and quickly capture the data to the data lake. The data is populated to the data lake where changes to the data is stored as time, preserving the data as it existed in the source database at the moment of time. This adds value through the aggregation of incremental updates, which may later be analyzed by researchers, preserving changes over time that may not otherwise be available through the source databases. From here, data is moved to the data warehouse, which enables researchers at colleges and districts to perform analysis across their data, which is unencrypted while limiting access by MIS code. So the data warehouse is designed to segment all of the data by MIS code so that each college or district is accessing only the data associated with their college or district, as well as enabling the chancellor's office to leverage the data warehouse to access data across the entire system for their research. The data warehouse also leverages a technology called Redshift Spectrum as part of its architecture, which provides structured access to data in the data lake. Collectively, this architecture that has been put in place is consistent with what is referred to as the Gartner Logical Data Warehouse model, with the Gartner Group, a large consulting group in technology, having been consulted in the original design for this platform. We also find this platform is very consistent with other data warehouses that have been put in place, including that at the CSU system. From here, the data warehouse report server is an optional method for institutional researchers to interact with the data warehouse. This provides the ability to query and download data across the available data sources. I'll be covering that in some more detail. And then additionally, researchers at colleges, the district office, or the chancellor's office may connect directly to the data warehouse, bypassing the report server so that they can connect their own preferred tools for analytics, reporting, or data mining to the data sources stored in the data warehouse. Brett, are there any questions that we should address before I move on, or?
Yeah, no questions yet. We're in a good spot.
Okay, great, and we'll have time to get into questions afterwards. So as far as accessing the report server, and I'm doing this through screenshots and not a live presentation, as the production environment obviously has live data, which would not be appropriate for me to access or present from. We are in the process of setting up a test server that I would be able to demo from in the future, but currently I don't have that access appropriately. So as far as accessing the Data Warehouse report server, it's accessed by the researchers at the colleges or district offices or the chancellor's office, with that access secured through the use of a login credential, which is further secured through the use of two-factor authentication. The way that works is the first time a researcher logs into the report server, a QR code is displayed, such as what you see here, so that two-factor authentication could be configured. Once that one-time process takes place, this allows a time-sensitive verification code to be generated from a third-party authenticator, such as Google Authenticator. And then this code is used along with the username or password to assure the identity and secure the data that's supported in the data warehouse through the report server. Once accessed the report server, there's a few things that could be done. And again, this is an enhancement of the existing data warehouse report server. Pretty much all the colleges have, researchers at all the colleges have been accessing the data warehouse report server, which has hosted the LGBTQ report. So what we've basically done with this recent release is enhance that existing platform in two ways. One, to add the two-factor authentication I just showed you. And then the second major upgrade was to map in additional data sources from Apply, International App, vWaiver, and MyPath, and for that to serve as a platform for us to continue to add data sources from the data warehouse, which I'll be talking about. So as far as the report server, which is based on TIPCO's Jasper product, it supports the ability to access existing reports that have either been developed by the Tech Center in the case of the LGBTQ reports, or developed by researchers at the colleges that can store the reports they generate to later return to. Importantly, the report server can also be used to create reports. Each of the data sources that have been added have had ad hoc reporting abilities enabled. So the report server provides the ability to generate these ad hoc reports from any of the available data sources. The workflow is fairly intuitive. I recently went through a pretty extensive demo of this product. I don't have a research background myself. I imagine the features that are here are pretty common to similar analytic products, though we know that a number of colleges have invested in pretty sophisticated BI tools, and that's why we're excited to make the ability to connect directly to the data warehouse available as an option, as well as offering this existing reporting functionality. So as far as setting up reports or creating reports, the workflow should be fairly intuitive, which begins with selecting the data to be queried, configuring the columns and groups, and to save the report with the option to be able to rerun the report, set up filters and choose the type of report or graph, as well as the ability to download the resulting data or schedule the report to be run automatically on a schedule, as well as to configure dashboards from the data in the data warehouse report server. And then again, this is one option of connecting. The other main option would be that direct connect option that we're launching soon in our next release. We're also working to expand the data sets that are available through the data warehouse. So I'm going to move on a little bit in terms of how to connect to this and what's coming up, and then we can loop back and talk more about the existing functionality and how that can support the current mission. As far as requesting access to the data warehouse report server, we've currently, we launched August 27th. We've already upgraded, I believe, 82 colleges to the new report server. If you are a researcher and you do not yet have access to the data warehouse report server, that can be requested through an email to the Tech Center Enabling Services College Relationship Manager. If you do not know who your specific college relationship manager is, an email to this email address I'm displaying will be routed to the correct individual who will reach out to respond and help set up your account. Generally, the request should come from the institutional research lead or department VP. Though if the request comes from elsewhere at the college or district office, the college relationship manager will respond and work with you in order to get the request approved from the appropriate individual at the college or district as that's part of our process and making sure that access is only being provisioned to the individuals that are authorized by the college. And then if anyone's on the phone from the chancellor's office or another entity looking for access to these data, I serve as the entry point there as the product manager, so that any access outside of the college or district office would come to me, and then working with myself, working with Steve Klein, who's the director for CCC Data, we will communicate with Vice Chancellor Barney Gomez, who serves as the single point of approval for approving any accounts outside of the college or district environment. So as far as what's coming up, I mentioned that on August 27th, we launched college and district access to the data warehouse report server with access to the full set of apply and multiple measures data with that access secured by two-factor authentication. So that was our first major release to the college community. The platform prior to that was available only to the chancellor's office. As of today, as I mentioned, we have researchers at 82 colleges already set up and accessing the report server. Later this month, we'll be launching our next major release, which is direct data warehouse access for colleges and districts, so that they may be able to connect their data tools through ODBC or JDBC connection to the data warehouse. We're initially launching this as a pilot in this month with the expectation of launching to production next month, so that any college or district office with a need for direct connection would may be able to request that, where we will set that up. And again, that would be working with the college relationship manager. We're currently setting up the pilot for this. I do have openings for 1 or 2 more pilot participants that are representative of the colleges we're looking to cover. If you are interested in direct connection and participating in the pilot, please go ahead and send an email to me at mcohen@ccctechcenter.org, and I will display that email address again at the end of the presentation. So with these 2 releases, we're basically providing 2 methods of access to the first set of data sources in the data warehouse. The next release, which we are targeting for late October, would start to add additional data sources to the data warehouse, which would again be accessed across both avenues, the report server and the direct connection. And that includes making the full set of COCI and CID data available. And then with that release, we will also be launching support for colleges to opt into having their Canvas data included in the data warehouse. Canvas, if you're not familiar, has a very extensive API with a wide depth and breadth of data that we are able to bring into the data warehouse on the college's behalf, so that data could be accessed through these tools and reports could be run, merging that Canvas data with other data sources from the data warehouse. And again, that is optional. And once we do launch this, we'll be sending out instructions on how to have your Canvas data added to the data warehouse, which amounts to providing us with the API key. There's a question on what is CID. So CID is the course identification system, and the CID system stores the articulations of courses with the CSU and UC systems. And then from there, we are looking right now at organizing our subsequent releases for the year with the 2 platforms of data access launched, our focus will largely be on introducing additional data sources to the data warehouse. There are some data sources we currently have in the data lake that are not yet in the data warehouse for reasons of data governance, such as MIS. There's other data sources that we are working on bringing into the data warehouse, either the direction of the Chancellor's Office or based on feedback from the advisory group, which we'll be talking about. And we're working with the Chancellor's Office on identifying those data sources and then scheduling the releases around that. As far as the advisory group currently serves as our main representation for stakeholder engagement. The group was formed at the end of the last fiscal year, and it's made up of institutional research planning and effectiveness leaders as identified by the RP group that has helped us with finding a representative grouping that made up the initial body. The advisory group also includes representation from the Chancellor's Office as well as the Technology Center. The goal for this group is to work with us to help inform the business requirements for how colleges connect and interact with the data warehouse, as well as to help to identify and prioritize the data sources and reporting abilities to meet their needs, and provide guidance that assures that the project is being developed in a manner consistent with the needs of the institutional research community. Additionally, with the recent release of the DOS report server, I will be engaging researchers outside of our advisory group to receive a broader array of feedback, as well as working closely with our enabling services and support groups to receive the feedback through them. I also am available, to receive feedback, and if you have thoughts once you start getting into these resources, I'm happy to, for you to reach out to me primarily through the email address that I linked to earlier and will display again later. So as far as working with the advisory group, we've been working on identifying and prioritizing prospective data sources that may be added to the data warehouse and report server. This work involves working with the Chancellor's Office and data governance to determine the availability, governance structures, and potentially MOUs that would be required to introduce some of these data sources to the platform. And this is an ongoing process. The list I'm displaying here is a working draft of some of these data sources. And this is, I'm sharing this to provide an idea of the types of data that's currently being discussed, with the ones towards the top of the list currently at the relative prioritization. This list does not intend to communicate defined definitive priorities or upcoming releases or an agreement that this data will be in the data warehouse. But this is the type of data that we're discussing, and we're beginning to work with the Chancellor's Office and identifying what we may be able to bring in this fiscal year or next. As we work through on completing the prioritization exercise and gaining approvals to bring data sources that they are available to be in the data warehouse, I'll be updating public documentation and product roadmaps to provide visibility into what will be coming up for the data warehouse. Beyond bringing in additional data sources, we're also looking at over time, based on direction from the Chancellor's Office and input from the advisory group and user community, looking at ways that we could enhance the CCC Data Platform. We're currently looking at those enhancements in the following categories. And again, this is in the conceptual stage. Given current budgets and priorities, I don't know that we'll be implementing new aspects to the platform in this fiscal year, but as we look forward to the future of the platform, we do see a few areas where it may be enhanced. The first is through the use of superglue. For those not familiar, superglue is an enabling technology developed by the Tech Center that's being used to connect colleges with various initiatives, particularly being used within CCC Apply and MyPath and multiple measures. Superglue is also used internally in connecting data from these projects or initiatives to the data lake and data warehouse. We're looking over time to continue leveraging Superglue for that purpose, as well as Superglue enabling an emerging master data management or MDM program. Not technically a part of the CCC Data Platform, but part of the same DSP grant. We are working with the Chancellor's Office on defining a master data management program that leverages some of these same technologies to provide master data management to data sources. More will be available on that as the work group comes together and starts defining a series of pilots that we expect to begin work on later this year. The next piece here is working with the Chancellor's Office and advisory group. We're exploring the use of data marts that provide zone or domain scope data sets with dashboards, reports, and analytics that target the needs of users of these various data sets. A data mart acts as a subset of a data warehouse in that it provides fast, subject-oriented data design to meet the needs of a specific group of users. So as we work to bring in new sources of data to the CCC Data Platform, in all cases, the data first goes into the data lake, and then it's moved to the structured data warehouse. But as we look at various data sources, the data warehouse is the appropriate technology for some data sources, where for others it may be presented to colleges through the use of data marts. So the intent is for the team to remain flexible in leveraging the appropriate technology for the business needs. And again, a big part of our dialogue with the user community and advisory group and Chancellor's Office is in better understanding those needs so that we can select the most appropriate technologies to address them. Related to this, over time, we're also exploring the use of multidimensional or cube databases, which would allow for data to be analyzed over time so that researchers may look for insights into data in ways not possible through a traditional database. And again, that would be driven by requirements, particularly data where the need is to look at data at various points in time, which may lend itself to leveraging that technology over the existing Redshift data warehouse. So the intent is to be flexible based on those needs. We're also looking at evaluating business intelligence tools over time. Currently, our focus is on making the optional report server available and the direct connection available so that data can be connected to local tools at the college or district office. Over time, we may find that there's a need or a direction to bring in additional analytic tools into the platform as well. And that's something that we will be evaluating as those needs come up and are part of the work we're directed to conduct by the Chancellor's Office. So this provides kind of an update on where we are and where we're going. From there, I kind of want to open up to a discussion, and then of course we can go back and dig a little deeper into any of the areas that we did cover. Brad, do you want to take it from here on discussion, or should I respond to what's in the chat?
Yeah, why don't you just jump in, and if we get behind, I can help.
Okay, great. So I see a question from James Sass. We are looking into creating a college historical data warehouse. Would the Chancellor's Office data warehouse make such a local warehouse obsolete? When do you project that MIS data would be available? So there's a couple of questions there. So I have spoken to a number of colleges that are using local data warehouses. And from my understanding, I don't believe that this resource makes a local data warehouse obsolete, in that the CCC Data Platform, the CCC Data Warehouse, is pulling data together from various sources, largely focused on system-wide sources, though over time we expect to be able to bring in some college-specific sources, such as data from an SIS or ERP, though we are not there yet. But based on the needs of the college, a local data warehouse could be really used in other ways and connect to a broader array of local resources. One thing I expect to happen is with the direct connection, it would enable enable a college researcher to access data from the data sources that are covered by the data warehouse report server, and connect those data sources into their local data warehouse to provide for analysis. Definitely open to conversation if there's other perspectives on this, either from colleagues at the Tech Center on the call, or from others with a deep understanding of the local data warehouse usage. As far as the second question on MIS data, I don't know the answer. I know that the Chancellor's Office is supportive on bringing in data from MIS. Right now, there's two things being worked on. One is I'm working. I've been connecting with some various researchers to understand what tables from the data warehouse are of the highest priority, so that we could prioritize the work around the appropriate tables, given the large volume of data that MIS contains. The other key piece is on data governance, in that there is work to be done within the Chancellor's Office data governance group on modifying the MOU to enable the Tech Center to share that data with the colleges from the data warehouse. I don't think there's an objection to doing so. It's just a matter of working through that legal and data governance process.
And we have another question here from Craig Hayward. He's asked to expand a bit upon how student identifiers are connected across data sources.
That's correct. That's a really good question. So right now, the way the data warehouse is designed is the data warehouse is designed to create a replica of the data from the various data sources. So that right now we are not doing transformations in that. So the data source is currently the data warehouse, which is the full set of applied data and the multiple measures data. What we're doing is we're bringing the data from those databases into the data lake, and then preserving the structure of those databases in the data warehouse. So the identifiers that are available, there are identifiers available in those data sets, of which the CCC ID should be consistent across all of that. As we start working with more data sources, more data sets from more data sources, we will definitely have an issue in that there's different identifiers being used across those data sources. And part of the work, part of the feedback, I think, over time that we're going to need to be working on with the Data Warehouse Advisory Group, as well as the expanded user community, is better understanding how we could best support setting up identifiers that support the connecting of data across those data sources. It's not an answer that I have today, but I believe it's work that we'll need to do working with the community on identifying how we can best support that.
And we have another question here from Terrence. Would the MIS data be based on the uploaded referentials, or ones we currently download from data on demand with the derived elements?
So it would be based on the data that would be downloaded. So the MIS database consists, I forget how many tables offhand, it's quite a few. But I know in the structure, there's, I think, 5 or 6 tables that are derived elements, and then, I don't know, 18 or so. My numbers are probably off, that are data based on the input. The intent would be to make the data to make the data from the prioritized tables available, which should include data containing derived elements. We're currently in the process of doing that evaluation and working with the Chancellor's Office on the governance around that. So I don't have a definitive answer on which tables will be available or when they will be available, but the intent is to make as much of that data available as the governance structures support.
And another question here from Jim. Would there be any comparison college data available on the new data mart?
So when you say the new data mart, are we talking about the data warehouse, or are we talking about I know there's a number of different data marts and data projects across the Chancellor's Office ecosystem. I can't speak to anything outside of the data warehouse. But as far as if the question is specific to the data warehouse, I'm not, hang on, let me back up to my data source slide.
And just wanted to put it out there, if folks want to unmute themselves to ask questions, feel free to do that. We're now through the presentation portion, so.
Right, so these are the data sources that currently are supported or in the process of being added to the data lake or data warehouse. As far as the question on comparison college data, and I'm not really, I would need more information. I don't really, I don't know how to answer that. And then I see on Terrence's comment, from the conversations I've had with researchers so far, there definitely is consensus on their value being in the derived elements. A common theme I'm finding in a lot of the conversations with researchers around data sources is looking for data in the data warehouse that would help support the auditing of processes that are calculating the data provided by the colleges by looking at how the outputs are generated at the Chancellor's Office. So I see a question from Alex on whether training would be provided on how to run reports in the data warehouse. We currently don't have such training scheduled. So the data warehouse reports are, as I mentioned, Alex, I'm not sure what point you joined. So there's two methods available to access these data sources. One is the data warehouse report server, which is a Jaspersoft report server. The other is a direct connection to the data warehouse. So if you're leveraging a direct connection, you'd be able to pull down data and then directly into the analytic or BI tool that you use locally. If you do want to leverage the data warehouse report server, it is the same report server that has been used for years for the CCC Apply Report Center, and the same report server that we've been using for the LGBTQ reports. The assumption is that there's general familiarity with the Jasper product in the field. If there is a need for training, that's something I could discuss with the team here and see whether and how we could best support that. I do know that our support team is pretty good at answering questions, but as far as comprehensive training, that's not something that we currently have scheduled. And then to answer Carlos's question, if I work at College X, would I be able to see data for College Y to compare my college to another institution? Now I understand what the comparison data, question on comparison data. So the way the data warehouse is designed is in the data warehouse itself. As we bring each of these data sources in, we segment the data by MIS code, and we do this strictly to not allow for the cross-sharing of data. So if there was a need for comparison data, that's something, if there's a, if there's a need from the field, that's something that we could go back to the Chancellor's Office with and discuss the need for that and how data governance may allow for reports to be generated that do that type of comparison. But right now, that's not part of our scope or roadmap, and we're expressly not allowing for data from other institutions to be viewed, with the exception of districts which can view the colleges associated with their district. And then following up on Alex's question regarding Jasper server, logging into Jasper server felt lost pretty quickly, but I haven't run the CCC or LGBTQ reports. So it's a good question. That's something I'd like to take back and see how we may be able to support that. Currently, within the CCC data team, our focus is on technology and supporting the technology to make all of this work and to bring the data in. As far as expertise using the tools. While we have members of our team that have familiarity with Jasper, I don't know I don't know to where we're equipped to do training, but I can look into how we may be able to support that. Making a note there. So next question I see here. We're not on CCC Apply as a non-credit institution with our own application, so we have less familiar as well and can use training. Okay, so there definitely is a theme here on training, and again, I will take that back and see what we may be able to do. If you want to shoot me an email as well, I could follow up with you directly as I look into what resources may be available either through Jasper or that we may be able to help arrange for. So next question, will colleges not adopting MMPS for placement still have access to the MM data? You know, I believe the answer is yes, in that we are receiving placement data through the applications, which would be stored in the data warehouse. I don't, Steve or Tim, do you
yes,
have
your answer is correct.
Okay. Thank you. I just wanted confirmation there.
Yep.
So yes, that data, we do have a workflow in place through multiple measures where as applications come in, the data is being run through an algorithm and that data is being stored to the data warehouse. And a question from Terrence, would there be the possibility of districts forming a data sharing agreement within a region to support CTE program planning, for example? It's definitely something that we can look into. I mean, if there's, you know, if there's interest from the field in creating data sharing agreements between colleges or districts, again, right now the system is designed to not support that specifically. That doesn't mean that couldn't become a work plan item over time. You know, if there's interest from the field and you know, direction from the chancellor's office to move in that direction. That's something I definitely am going to take a note of, and you know, and add to the agenda for the data warehouse advisory group to start the conversation there, start getting a sense of how much interest there may be there. Again, feel free to message me directly so I could track your information in relation to that.
Yeah, and in response to Abad here, I went ahead and posted the contact information for colleges and districts to request access to the DW report server here in the chat. And Mark, it might be good to maybe put the final slide up so folks can see your email address in case they had any questions.
Yeah, let me get back there. Oh, well, actually, this one has my email address at the bottom and the CRM email address if you're looking to get access to the data warehouse resources. Yeah, and then I definitely will look into the issue of training and coordinate how we could best respond to that need.
Yeah, and per Alex's suggestion, I think RP would be more than willing to help support that. So just let us know what you need, Mark, and we can do a secondary version of this. Yeah,
that'd be wonderful to go deeper there. You know, from a personal level, like I said, I just recently you know, did a dive with the vendor and found the tool very powerful, but I hope to be at the point where I could provide that type of level of demo or training, but I'm not there yet. Any other questions?
I think we're caught up here for the moment. Please take note, we do have an evaluation of this webinar today. The link to that is included in the chat. We hope that you will please let us know what your experiences were today and how we can continue to best support you. It's literally about 4 questions, so it should just take a minute or 2 to complete. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you all for attending. I appreciate the opportunity to be able to present to you and to be able to support your work through this platform, and I'm very receptive to your feedback, and hope that you reach out if there's items that should be on my radar.
And were there anybody's questions that we might have missed? Okay, not seeing much more. If you do have a question and you're using the chat, we'll stick around here for another couple minutes or so. Thank you all for attending today. It's been an insightful session. I learned a lot.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for having me. Brad, I could provide.
This is Terrence.
Hey, Terrence.
Hi, Mark. I just had a follow-up question. So it was about access. And so we did get an email a couple weeks ago from the tech center about getting that set up. And does that mean that the process has begun? And because I don't want to bug people with an email if things are already in process.
Yeah, the email, the answer is no. So what the email was to reach out. The next step would be to either respond to the college relationship manager who sent that email, or just send an email to this CRMS email address that I've displayed here, and let them know who you would like to be set up. The email address, name, and title, and then they will go ahead and start the process of getting those accounts created. Okay, great. And we did that, so we're good to go and things are happening. Excellent. Yeah, if it's been, if it's been a week and you haven't heard from them, they're pretty good, and I'm sure if you message them, it's happening. But if it's been more than a few days, it would be worth dropping an email just to make sure that everything's on track. Okay, great. Thank you. Appreciate it. And this is this is exciting stuff. I can't wait to go swimming in the data lake. I've had my towel and my rubber ducky for many years now. Yeah, that's exciting.
So a couple other questions came in here about whether or not the PowerPoint is available. As I shared in the chat, we are recording. This will be posted to the RP website. Mark, unsure about your thoughts associated with sharing the PowerPoint. If that's
I could share the PowerPoint as well. I do have. I could tease apart the slides with the mock-ups so they're visible. But yeah, I could shoot over a copy of the PowerPoint to you.
Okay, so yeah, feel free to reach out to me on that, or you can email Mark directly. Either way works. And let's see here. One other question. When new data sources are uploaded, is there an announcement on the website or email that's sent to folks using the Jasper report?
Yeah, that's a great question. So the answer is yes. So there is a project website, a Confluence site that contains a lot of information, and that will be kept current. And then when we add new data sources, that will be done in a software release. And part of our formal software release process is in sending emails out. And we will be emailing out to the colleges and to the account holders with information about the new software releases, which would definitely communicate new data sources being added. And then just to mention, when the CRM set you up with your account, they will be providing a link to the Confluence site, and at that Confluence site, there's links to the data dictionaries for all the data sources that are available in the data warehouse as well.
Okay, with that, we seem to have some calm in the chat, and I think we're about ready to wrap up here.
Great. Thanks again, and please reach out if anything comes up afterwards.
Thanks for joining us, everyone. Take care.
Thank you.